question or anything, do I? I'd like to call to order the September 25th meeting of the Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority. Please note the roll. Vice President Flores.
Here.
Secretary Shaw.
Here.
Director Kirkland.
Here.
Director Baker.
Here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Director Anderson.
Here.
Thank you. In call for citizen communication, we have 2 people signed up to speak. This is a time where you may talk for 3 minutes, tell us what you came to say. If we aren't able to deliberate with you, we can ask factual questions, but that's all that we can contribute. So I first have Mrs. Elizabeth, I'm gonna mess it up, Abersol. Okay. It looked like there was an extra letter in there, so.
My name is Liz Abersol. I live at 18205 North Rim Drive. Out of respect for the board's time, I will be speaking on behalf of the 103 homeowners in North Rim, rather than having all of us come up to address you this afternoon. We'd like to first start out by thanking Secretary Shaw for coming out and visiting our neighborhood and understanding the impact of this project to our community. $2.5 million. $2.5 million is the low end of the estimated depreciation in property value to the residents of North Rim if you run your power line through our neighborhood. North Rim is not a group of never in my backyard time wasters. Who we are is business owners who create jobs for the voters in your cities. Who we are pediatricians who take care of the children in your cities. We are current and retired teachers who teach in the schools in your cities. We are not to be grouped into a block of obstructionists who don't want to see the citizens in your cities thrive. We show up every day contributing to the success of the residents in your cities. And the voting constituents in your cities care about us. And they care about the impact of this portion of the project on our community. We are real people. And this board will do real harm to us if you run this route through our community. Our homes are the primary source of equity for us. For the homeowners in our neighborhood, this is not an inconvenience. This is devastating. We know you're voting on exploring an alternative to Route 1431 tonight. We thank you for hearing us. We thank you for hearing us. We ask that you vote yes tonight on that resolution and vote yes when the study comes back to run this route along 1431. There is more to an equation than just construction costs. It's also considering the people. This is a win-win for you and for us. You get your constituents what you need while mitigating the impact on our neighboring communities. Thank you for listening to us, thank you for hearing us, and thank you for voting yes tonight on 1431.
Okay, thank you. We have Benjamin Trace.
I think she covered it very, very well.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay. Item 4A, consider approval of the BCRUA meeting minutes for August 28th, 2019. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
And a motion? And a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And item number 5 is introduce our new board member, Mr. Baker from the city of Round Rock. Feel free to give us a little bio of your time here on the board.
Well, thank you for that. I'm honored to be here. Just for those of y'all that don't know me, I recently retired from the TCEQ. That's where I spent the majority of my career as an engineer, working in a variety of areas. And now I, with my wife, own a small real estate company. So that's what I do to put food on the table, I'm sorry. My wife and I married up. I'm an Aggie. And she's a Notre Dame graduate. We have 3 small boys that keep us busy. So that takes most of my spare time. But I'm honored to be here. Hopefully I can add value to this group, and I thank you all for being here too, and taking your time out of the day to come here. We've received your emails, been reading all of them, so thank you very much for that, but I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Welcome. Okay. Item 6A, consider a resolution approving the BCRUA investment policy and strategy.
Thank you, Madam President. We have Lori Langford today to address both items 6A and 6B. She is Round Rock's Deputy Chief Financial Officer. I'll turn it over to Lori.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me. I want to introduce to you the investment policy for the BCRUA and some of the minor changes that are being recommended to the policy. According to the PFIA, the Public Funds Investment Act, which is Chapter 2256 of the Local Government Code, if you do public investments, you have to have an investment policy that governs those investments. And it has to be reviewed annually and adopted annually by the board. We use Patterson and Associates to advise us at BCRUA on our investments, and they have reviewed this policy. All of the finance directors and CFOs have reviewed the policy, and we're only making some very minor changes. I'll go over those changes, and then I'll give you a couple of items to note in the policy in case you're not familiar with an investment policy. First of all, we are changing the name of the investment policy from investment policy to investment policy and strategy because it more accurately reflects what the document is. It's not just our policy, it also discusses the strategies that we go through and that type of thing. And then also in Section 4, we are updating a section where it said that we presented to you guys a monthly investment report when actually we only present to you quarterly, and that's what's required by the PFIA. And we do, as an operations committee, look at a monthly investment report that's provided to us from Patterson to monitor for compliance and to evaluate our investments, but that's not something that we bring before the board monthly. A couple of the sections that I just want to point out to you is on page 2, it lists the primary objectives of an investment policy. First and foremost, the first priority of a policy is safety of an investment. We do not want to put the taxpayers or the ratepayers' money at risk. So safety is the most important. And then we look for liquidity, diversification, and yield. Yield is one of our last objectives when considering an investment. And then Section 9 of the policy, which is on page 4, is that it lists all of our allowable types of investments that the PFIA says that we can invest public funds in. And we are only allowed to take maturities out 3 years. We don't play in long markets. We're conservative and we keep it short. Sometimes we don't even go out 3. That's typically for BCRUA and even for the city of Round Rock, we're usually at the 2-year mark. On page 5, there are limitations on how much of any type of investment we can make. This will help manage the diversification and the liquidity whenever we're determining the structure of our portfolio. We don't want too much of our portfolio to be tied up in an investment or in a CD or commercial paper because that is not a liquid asset. We can't go get it today if we need it. So we need a portion of it to live liquid in a money market or in one of our investment pools, and then the rest of and then we can invest it according to the percentages in the other types of investments that are allowed, in the other types by the percentage that's allowed. And we monitor that percentage at least in our quarterly investment policy, but it's also looked at monthly to make sure we haven't exceeded any of those requirements or limitations. Page 7 in section 15 discusses the collateralization of our investments. It has to be 102% collateralized for us to be able to invest in it. That's where the safety piece of it comes in. And then page 8 on section 14, according to our policy, we have to bring you a quarterly investment report and explain where your portfolio sits, at least quarterly. And Robert brought that to you guys last month. And all investment officers are required to take at least 8 hours of Public Funds Investment Act training every 2 years. So We have to stay up to date on what the law says, what the legislation is telling us that we have to do, and that type of thing. And I have been through it several times. It's not the most entertaining training, but it is useful, and it reminds us of how to be good stewards of taxpayers and ratepayers' money. That's all I have on that item. I'll talk more about the broker-dealer list when we get to that item.
Okay. So, board, do you have any questions? Okay, a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item 6B, Ms. Langford. Considering resolution approving the amended authorized broker deal list.
Okay, so we have a broker-dealer list that we are required to create according to the Act. It's in, the section 2256.025 of the PFIA states that we have to bring before the board a list to be approved and adopted annually. This list is created, we receive assistance from Patterson Associates, our investment advisors, to create this list. We have a say-so in who appear on this list. The way some people, broker-dealers can get on there is based on the experience that Patterson has had with that broker-dealer, how competitive the rates are, and also the bulk of the list is to have several dealers on the list creates a larger inventory of investments so that the dealers can be competitive with each other so that we can get the best rates out there. And just for my Round Rock people, 7 of the people on the list for BCRUA are also on our list in Round Rock. And so, and also something else that we look at is whenever we go to our professional conferences, if we get to meet some of these people, I personally know some of the representatives for some of these broker-dealers that are on this list, and so that also helps determine who can appear on this list. And we are adding BOK Financial, In Capital, and Oppenheimer.
Okay, board, do you have any questions? Mr. Baker?
On the list, you may mention this, I just missed it. Two questions. One, is there a minimum number that we are supposed or required to have on the list? And then secondly, how often do we review the list?
You're not required to have a certain number.
Okay.
It's whatever, basically whatever our financial advisor recommends. And people do fall off the list occasionally. We've removed them before because they aren't active in our market anymore. They don't have anything that we can actually purchase from them at that time. So we have been removed, and we have to review and adopt this list annually.
Anyway, okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions, board? Okay, we have a resolution. Have a motion? Motion and a. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. None opposed. Resolution passes.
Thank you.
Call item 6C, consider a resolution authorizing the president to execute an amended supplemental agreement number 6 with Walker Partners for Phase 1C water treatment plant expansion and Phase 2 land rights and stakeholder coordination project. Ms. Bondi.
Thank you, Madam President. This item is an amendment to the deepwater intake or Phase 2 land rights and stakeholder coordination project. This particular supplemental contract addresses the land rights related items that are for the entire project. The first phase was approved by the board in April 2017 and mainly focused on the easements that were going to be needed for the water intake and the tunnels, and then the what we call new build, the brand new Pernals Electric Co-op easements for the power line extensions. So until we had an agreement with Pernals Electric Co-op, we really didn't know what easement work was going to be needed for the portion of the electrical improvements that we call rebuild, which are improvements to existing transmission, electrical distribution. So earlier this year, we reached agreement with Pernaus Electric Co-op, so now we have a good handle on what the scope is of that work, so that's why we're bringing it to you now. So included in this supplemental contract, we've also recently been able to add the requested North Rim alternative alignment study that includes a more detailed evaluation of some of the alternative routes through and around the neighborhood that we had studied before, including evaluation of the alignment down FM 1431 that had been done in 2016, but more at a high level, and this will be a much more detailed evaluation. As I mentioned, this contract will also include areas where improvements are needed to overhead electric in existing easements and some water line, and then a limited number of temporary construction easements. The services are going to include project management, right-of-way and land acquisition efforts, agency and stakeholder coordination, and preliminary design updates. Now, the board had previously approved this amendment earlier, a couple months ago, but as we were developing the scope of work for the requested North Rim alternative alignments, we are now working that into this contract amendment, and we were also able to reduce the cost of the contract for some of the service that had previously been included but aren't timely, so that the resulting cost is $497,885. Now, this will be a time and materials contract, which means we will only spend the amount of funds that are needed for whatever the services are. So there's a good opportunity to come in at a lower cost. And the funding for this contract comes from for Cedar Park and Leander for the 2018 SWIFT funds, and for Round Rock for the Phase 1A savings. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Board, do you have any questions? Okay. We have a resolution? Motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, resolution passes. Okay, call item 7. Item 7 is director closing comments. We'll start with Mr. Baker, even though you can talk more now.
I don't need more time. I just thank you all for coming and keep us informed. And I've been on the receiving end, my family's been on the receiving end of this type of topic in the past, so I'm sensitive to it. And I consider us neighbors. We need to get along, so I hope we can find a resolution good for all of us. But thank you for taking time out of your day for being here. Thank you.
Mr. Flores.
Thank you for being here. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you we have 2 nice blocks of restaurants and adult beverages. So please indulge and enjoy our city. But thanks for coming out, and good night.
Mr. Kirkland.
Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Apologize, I lost my voice real quickly, so take care and have a safe trip home.
All right, Mr. Shaw.
Well, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you to get in your car and go a few blocks up the road to some of Leander's restaurants. We got some really outstanding restaurants. The new one's AJ's. Go check it out. It's really good desserts.
Okay. Mr. Anderson.
I just wanted to say that I look forward to coming to a resolution with the folks, the homeowners in North Rim. I believe we're going to get there.
And thank you for your persistence. I appreciate your emails. If I haven't responded, I'm waiting for the last one to come in, and I'll respond. No, I'm kidding. But I appreciate the persistence, and I just ask for your patience as we work through this process and make sure we're gathering all the necessary information for the proper evaluation. And thank you to all of our staff, Ms. Bondi, our city staff, Mr. Archer, appreciate you. So, thank you. And the meeting is adjourned.